Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Before I get into our article, I just got done watching the show Raised by Wolves that's on HBO Max. I don't know if any of you folks are hip to this show, but it was done by Ridley Scott, and Travis Fimmel from Vikings is in it. And holy shit, this show is awesome. For me, it feels like it is directly in the universe of Alien. According to Ridley Scott, it is not, and the creator, I forget his name, the other guy that's working with Ridley Scott, he said that it's a close cousin to the Alien universe. But there is a big time like Prometheus feel to this show, and it is awesome. I was locked into this show like I haven't been locked into a show in quite some time. And just for transparency purposes, I'm really into science fiction kind of shows and fantasy shows. So maybe I'm just biased or whatever. But man, I really enjoyed it. It was very well done. The writing was very slick. The cinematography was awesome. If you like Ridley Scott and the way he shoots his movies, you'll love this. Yeah. I just finished the last episode last night, and I was just blown away with how well it was done. And I figured I'd hop on this morning before we started our article and let you folks know that if that's something you're into and, you know, you're locked down right now or, you know, you got some time off, whatever it may be, this is certainly a show that is worth the binge. It was a good escape for me, you know, and I think that right now it's a good idea for us to be able to escape from the real world every now and then. So if you're looking for a show to binge and you're looking for something pretty damn good, in my opinion, to watch, I highly suggest Raised by Wolves on HBO Max. Now, today, our article. We're going to talk a little bit about the depositions that are about to be released on Monday. So we talked a little bit about this a couple of days ago, how there was an imminent document drop after the Does missed the deadline to object to this coming out. And I said it was going to be very soon, but now it looks like we have a date. And that date is Monday, folks. So obviously, we'll be prepared to dive into that deposition on Monday and take a look at what's what, right? And we will jump on and report about it. Obviously, we'll talk about it. We'll discuss some of the things that are inside of this deposition, and we'll see if there's any bombshells, right? Again, like usual, I would temper everyone's excitement. A lot of the stuff is probably known, but there will be a lot of context like usual, and there will be some little nuggets of gold for us to find and harvest. So definitely be on the lookout for that Monday. And I will, I'm going to the mountains early Monday morning at like 3:30 in the morning. So when I get home from the mountains, I'll dive in and see what's what. And then we'll do an episode to try and make heads or tails of what the deposition involves. So our article today is from lawandcrime.com. The author, Adam Klasfeld. And if you don't follow Adam Klasfeld on Twitter, you probably should. The guy has a lot of great information about the Epstein case, about other things that are going on. If you're interested in, Trump news, he always has some stuff going on about, the different legal proceedings with Trump, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as the Maxwell, Epstein, document dumps, as far as court document dumps, Adam Klasfeld has been all over it, and he's done a superior job. So make sure that if you're not following him on Twitter, you give him a follow. More transparency is imminent in the long-settled defamation lawsuit against accused sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, with a federal judge ordering the release of a deposition on Monday featuring the testimony of an unidentified Doe 1. So we're going to hear from an unidentified Doe as far as depositions go. Somebody who gave a deposition in in regards to the case between Maxwell and Virginia Roberts. And this is the deposition that is going to be dumped on Monday. One of the many documents that was under seal that Preska ordered to be unsealed, and the appellate courts held up that order. So this is from Doe 1, and it's going to be interesting to see what it entails, right? Again, it's very interesting for me to see what sort of context we can find within these documents. I'm not expecting world-shattering dumps here. I don't expect it to be some kind of, earth-moving informational dump where we're like, holy shit, we never knew any of this. But I do expect it to provide some more context, right? When we're as deep as we are on this podcast, 820 episodes, 400 plus straight days without missing a day, yeah, we're looking for some context. Having received no objections from Doe's 1 or 2, the transcript of Doe 1's deposition and materials quoting or disclosing information from that transcript shall be posted on the public docket no later than Monday, November 23rd at 9 a.m., U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska wrote in a 5-page order on Friday. So Preska, look, like I said, Preska is unleashed at this point. She is not playing games with these people. She has had enough. She's had a belly full of the nonsense. And if there is anyone on the federal level who has proven to be someone who truly cares about justice, somebody who cares about the law and being an arbiter of the law fairly, it has been Judge Preska. When this all first started in her courtroom, I was pretty critical of her, right? Because again, I'm very willing to admit it, folks. I am very cynical about this whole process. Sometimes too cynical, perhaps. And, it's to the point where I have a very hard time trusting any of the institutions in the United States that I should be able to trust. And that's a big problem for me. That is a very, very, very big problem for me. If we can't trust these institutions to fairly arbitrate the law and fairly administer the law as written, then we're all in big trouble, and we might as well just all pack it in and move right into 1984 and an Orwellian existence. These people are not above the law. These people are not playing on a different field. And thankfully, Judge Preska recognized that, and Judge Preska did what she could do from her chair in her courtroom. And I think that a lot of credit needs to go to Judge Preska because it's a courageous move on her part. What, you don't think she was facing her colleagues and they were looking at her sideways? I'm sure they were. All of these Harvard-trained dirtbags. Neither of the Does has been identified, but both have been given ample opportunity to object to the release of information that the Second Circuit tasked Judge Preska with unsealing back in August of 2019. Now, again, in my opinion, I think it's going to come out that the two Does who are having their depositions released here are not interested in keeping their names private anymore because they're already working with the federal government against Ghislaine Maxwell as far as testifying. And that would all be coming out in the discovery anyway. So I believe that is the motivation here with these Does, and that's the reason why they did not object to their names being released after they were under seal already. Now, again, I might be completely off, right? I don't have, like I always tell you, folks, I'm not here to blow smoke up your ass, right? I'm not here acting like I'm Walter Cronkite out in the field breaking news, all right? That's not what I'm doing here. I'm commentating on the news that's being provided. And when I have a chance to, maybe talk to sources or people who have not been on the record, obviously I do that. Hell, I flew all the way to New Mexico to do that. But what I am telling you, in my opinion here, is that these girls are probably lined up as witnesses for the government at this point. That order followed watershed publication of the Miami Herald series Perversion of Justice, which renewed attention to dead pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 plea deal and has been widely credited for his prosecution and Maxwell's. You see, that's a big problem right there unto itself. Again, like I've said a million times, I think it's awesome that the Miami Herald initiated this investigation. And I think it's great that Julie K. Brown dug so hard and found so many different threads, right? I shouldn't even say found. I should say rediscovered a bunch of different threads to pull on, because all of this stuff was out there for a long time. Nobody cared though, right? None of these legacy media outlets gave two shits. And the Miami Herald didn't give two shits either until Acosta rolled in. So at the end of the day, for me, I think that it's pretty ironic, right? That Acosta, him getting that job with Trump's cabinet, pretty much initiated this whole entire thing. And I really don't care how we get from point A to point B as long as we get there. But the question still remains, where were all of these so-called high-profile journalists for a decade leading up to this? Where was the interest then? Where was the digging then? Where was all of the podcasting then? And all of the reporting then and the exposés then? Oh yeah, that's right. You guys had them, but you were quashing them so that you could have access to the royals. I have zero faith in the legacy media. Now, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean all of the outlets or all of the journalists are bad, right? Because that's not the case. We know that a lot of journalists that work for these outlets who might have used to, they might have used to have been with like the New York Times or one of these other legacy media outlets, but now they're working on their own or for other outlets that are more willing to dig into the case. But the main legacy media outlets that people turn to for the news usually nationwide, you know, the New York Times, the Washington Post, etc., they didn't give a shit. And they still don't give a shit. Following the expose, the Herald went to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals to unseal broad swaths of the court record in alleged survivor Virginia Roberts' lawsuit claiming Maxwell defamed her by denying that she made her Epstein's sex slave. Well, look, it is a very interesting situation all around, right? All of the moving parts as far as getting this stuff unsealed, all of the stuff that led up to it, and finally to the point where we're at now. It has been one winding ass road to get here. So the Miami Herald, look, I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to denigrate the Miami Herald, because I'm not. I certainly put them a million pegs above places like the New York Times. And I think that the Miami Herald going so hard after this was a huge deal and a gigantic step in the right direction for a so-called mainstream outlet to do that. So I think that out of all of these mainstream outlets, out of all of these, institutions that decided that they were going to investigate Jeffrey Epstein, Miami Herald is by far head and shoulders above everybody else. And they really dug hard, and they do deserve a lot of credit for kicking this back into gear. But my problem isn't so much with them, it's with the rest of the legacy media. Where the hell were they for decades leading up to this? Robert's settlement with Maxwell kept much of the court record under wraps for years, but a Second Circuit ruling in the Herald's favor has led to increasing sunlight on the case ever since. And what do they say? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Isn't that what they tell us, folks? And that most certainly is the case here. This needs to all be out into the public view. We need to see all of the documents. This is not national security. If you have to redact some of the survivors or victims' names, then that's fine. But anyone who was involved as far as criminally, I don't want to hear anything about redactions. I don't want to hear anything about these people being protected. All of this needs to come to a head and then bust out. In July, Judge Preska ordered the release of an email correspondence from 5 years ago, showing what appeared to be a press statement in Maxwell's voice, only it was written by Epstein to her. And when that happened, we knew that it was the deal, right? We knew that Epstein and Maxwell were still in contact. These people don't just stop talking to each other. They were very, very much connected. They were very much involved. And if anyone thinks that they just dropped off and stopped talking, well, they have not been paying attention. Since Jeffrey Epstein was charged in 2007 for solicitation of a prostitute, I have been the target of outright lies, innuendo, slander, defamation, and salacious gossip and harassment, Epstein wrote GMAX in an email dated January 21st, 2015. So they were trying to lay the groundwork to make it look like Ghislaine Maxwell had nothing to do with Epstein, trying to distance her from him, right? And Epstein was the one coordinating all of it. Still the maestro, still the puppeteer. The message undercut Maxwell's legal defense because she had claimed the two of them had been out of contact for more than a decade. On October 22nd, Maxwell's deposition from the old defamation case was made public, showing what prosecutors allege to be perjury. And that again goes back to the two does who we're talking about here in this article who did not meet that deadline and why they would not meet that deadline. Again, for me, it almost has to be that they're going to be providing testimony in this case, and they know the cat's out of the bag anyway, and they're ready to go to the mattresses and tell their story about who Ghislaine Maxwell is and what she did. Did Jeffrey Epstein have a scheme to recruit underage girls for sexual massages? Asked Sigrid Macaulay, at the time an attorney for her prominent accuser, Virginia Roberts. If you know. I don't know what you were talking about, Maxwell responded. So right there, we know that that's probably one of those perjury charges, right? Saying she didn't know about the whole operation, etc., etc. BS. Come on, everybody knows that she knew the deal. I don't know what you were talking about, Maxwell responded. Federal prosecutors quoted the exchange in one of their charges of false statements. In this article, you can read the 5-page order as well. Make sure you click on the link and go and check out the article as well. And her comments here were obviously lies, and federal prosecutors quoted the exchange in one of their charges of false statements. So we can kind of do our own legwork here, right? Our own sleuthing, our own investigative work, and put the pieces together. And that's what you folks have been so good at since the very beginning. I mean, some of the investigation that you folks do is just amazing out there, right? Me, like I always tell you, I'm just one person. I do what I can, but there's things that slip by me. So when you folks send me articles and you folks send me emails and, send me different threads to yank on, believe me, I'm all over it. So I highly respect those of you out there who dig into this case and spend time digging into this case. And believe me, it does not go unnoticed and it is much appreciated. I think that something like this has to be a community effort, right? There's not just one person who can possibly spend the time or has the resources to really dig into this case alone. So it's really been a big time community and group effort to try and advance this ball over the goal line. So keep it up, folks. Keep sending all those articles, keep sending all of those threads to yank on, and just generally keep up being an awesome group of folks. All right, everybody. I will be back later on tonight, probably with a daily drop, depending on what's going on in the news. More than likely there'll be a daily drop tonight, maybe a little bit later than usual, but there probably will be one tonight, considering there's a couple of articles I have archived that I wanted to discuss, and if it's slow tonight, well, that will be the perfect time to do so. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has donated to the show and who enjoys the content and wants to keep the content pumping, thank you folks so much. All right, everybody, I will catch you folks later on tonight. Enjoy your Saturday.